When I first came out, when I first finished and I started writing about, because Obama was president, everybody was like, oh, Curry, you're just pessimistic, right? And I told him, I was like, you do know for every symbolic success, and this is Derek, because I talked to Derek a lot when I was writing my dissertation, so I was doing a lot on his work, and it's like, Derek says that for every symbol there's a backlash, and the backlash is usually worse. If you're like, oh no, we've made it, we've made a turn, I was like, well, that's not what history shows us. History, no, I'm serious. History does not show us that we've made a turn. It's like when ethnonationalism pops out, you see repression, you see a focus on white population, and you see a demonization or extermination of racialized men. That's the way that empire works. And sure enough, ta-da, And I guess my frustration when you're in philosophy, there's never like, well, Curry's right, research was right, But it also points out that the arrogance of the intellectual project, right? The arrogance of believing that we're the interpreter, par excellence, so to speak, is that we interpret the world towards our interests rather than what the world is disclosing to us. I mean, this is a major moment for people. Not because it shows that one group of people is right or wrong, but because it shows that we have to reorient the whole way we think about things. We have to reorient ourselves to everything about what we assume democracy is. It seems that democracy is, in fact, compatible with neo-fascism. That's an important discovery in the 21st century, right? Because we've always said that democracy was the enemy of these kinds of ideologies. So then this means that we have to do a major re-examination of what we thought. If this is true, then that means that all these democratic reforms that we think are doing such great work on race and on migration, right? We got to rethink that. This demonstrates that the civil rights movement wasn't that effective because it didn't re-socialize America, right? This didn't just pop up overnight. This was already here. This was already the undercurrents of these invisible voices. Those people that Donald Trump was like, oh, we didn't hear you, middle America. Well, guess what? Now we hear you and you see what you got. So we have to start thinking about and diagnosing very different problems. And that means that some people may have to turn to actual politics, questions of power, because that's what we're exercising right now. And the academy's moved to this discursive formulation of race and using continental philosophy and talking about discourse and grammatology precisely because it didn't want to deal with the messiness of the real world. It wants to write itself in terms that nobody could understand because it's not speaking to the people who are being affected. These young brothers who were involved with Ferguson, these brothers are being killed. We don't know why these black men that are involved with Black Lives Matter are just being picked off. Like, this is telling us something about the orientation of violence and the state to political dissent. Like, this is costing people its lives. And we're not paying attention to it because we have the veneer of what social activism looks like. Oh, look, this academic has 1 million Twitter followers. Congratulations. Look at how important they are. But when was the last time you ever had a revolution happen because of hashtags? You see, but this is the logics that we're buying into. This is the logic that we're buying into. And to be the star academic is not about whether or not you're motivating or diagnosing social problems. We're not trying to create Bowmans or Fanons or Winters. We're not trying to create those people. We want people that could placate us with the ideas that some identity politic, that some kind of new intersectional maxim changes things, and we still haven't grappled with the real problem of death. And the intimidation that political problem of death brings about in producing, or us producing thinking or thought. That's a damned position to be in. Because it means that we don't have an apparatus, intellectual, social, or otherwise, to actually inspire change. The reason people read Fanon was not because he gave cool, introspective renderings of psychoanalysis or existentialism. It's like this guy is giving us a political program that's diagnosing how we're affected by colonialism and how we may overturn it. Very simple. Notice how Black Skin, White Mass is written completely different than Wretched of the Earth? Like Black Skin, White Mass, it's like, oh, this is just so academic and lovely. And Wretched of the Earth is like, if you want to start a revolution, here's how. Right? Don't dance because you're wasting energy where you could be killing people. Right? This is what Fanon is talking about, right? But it's written in plain language. Very plain. Right? He knew he was on the way out here. Here's how we think about these issues. When you look at his editorials, right, towards the African Revolution, right, very plain language. Why? Because he actually expects to change the way that people think. That's not what we're interested in doing in the academy. And one of the reasons that I think that the piece that I did, the podcast that I did, got so much attention, is because it wasn't a Twitter hashtag, right? It was an actual podcast that at that point, I think before the alt-right got onto it, they had like 3,000 or 4,000 views, right? So black people had listened to it. They had been commenting on it for years. Some people have been using it in their class, right? Like black people were being inspired by a different way of thinking. That was the problem. See, that's why Dreyer, because you can read Dreyer's subsequent works. That's why Dreyer was so interested in the case. Because see, what Dreyer tried to do, he tried to create this story. He said, "Oh, look what he said in the podcast. Oh, look at what these, some right wing came into, my class and like took snippets of it." All right? Like, I mean, and here's the funniest part about it is that you can tell that the tapes are doctored, but it points to the contrary. Like, there's this one point where I talk about watching news because white people were getting beat aside the head with batons. And I said, I turn on and this is true, I'll say it again. I actually turned on the news to watch that because it's the first time that white America was being socialized into police repression and violence like black people had. So white people were fearing their loss of property during Occupy Wall Street. They thought that they were being niggerized to a certain extent. And when they started protesting the state, they weren't good white citizens anymore. They were being met with repression and violence. And I was like, that's why I watched it, because look at white America's reaction to figuring out that the state didn't care about them either. It was a crisis. Right? That's the importance of watching that moment. Right? But they want to spin it as if, notice what to do. Oh, well, this black guy just hates white people. He likes seeing them get beat in the head with batons. Like, yeah, because the effect of it is, right, now their ideas of whiteness is fractured. Same thing when we talk, I talk about, the conservative. It's a program to try to make white people believe that they're endangered and that their only real response is violence or the elimination of racialized people. So until we start addressing that, right, this is why I talk about the expansion of racial phobics, right? Until we start addressing that, then we're not going to be able to fight off what's coming. Because I guarantee you, this stuff, where you see these dissertations being published in philosophy and stuff like this about white supremacy, that's going to increase. You're going to see more and more popular writing. You're going to see more and more academic writing that's going to have some of these elements in it. And this is not going to be something that you're going to be able to just adjudicate within the literature. This is going to be something where you're going to have people growing up, being cultivated in graduate programs, getting tenure track positions, and you don't know how long that lasts, that are going to be held up in some major universities advocating this stuff. And this is not going to be something where they're just going to close them and lock them away. This is going to influence students. This is going to be worse than the bell curve. Because the bell curve just got after a decade it was bad science. But this is going to be legitimate philosophy, right? This is going to be legitimate social political thought, good race theory. That's what these people are aiming for.